Primary day in Maine is just 4 days away, and all eyes are on the U.S. Senate race, where political newcomer and progressive Graham Platner is challenging longtime incumbent Republican Susan Collins. Platner, a 41-year-old combat veteran, oyster farmer, and political newcomer, was miles ahead in the polls before a series of scandals involving his personal life emerged, including an article in the New York Times from last night that alleged abusive behavior in his past romantic relationships. GBH political reporter Adam Reilly joins me now to break down what all this means and how local leaders are weighing in. Adam, good morning. Thanks for being here.
Good to be with you.
So this has garnered so much national attention. Leaders from across New England have weighed in. Mm-hmm. A lot of Massachusetts leaders have weighed in, have something to say about this. Why is this race so pivotal?
Well, I think this is a huge race when it comes to Democrats' attempt to take back the Senate. If they don't win in Maine, they could still take back the Senate, but it's a terrific opportunity for them. There are other maps that involve them taking back the chamber, but the best maps, I think, involve winning Maine. Also, this race involves, as you mentioned, this guy who came out of nowhere to become a local Bernie Sanders-esque sensation, Graham Platner, who obviously has tremendous natural political gifts that have propelled him to where he is right now, where he's the presumptive Democratic nominee. He drove Janet Mills, the governor of Maine, basically out of the race because she couldn't fundraise and compete with him. So he's got these incredible political skills. Looks like the nomination is his for the taking, and yet he has had to weather, depending on the choice of words that you want to go with, scandal after scandal or controversy after controversy for more than half a year now.
I think his policies, too, are also part of the reason why. You mentioned Bernie Sanders and all of the excitement. He supports Medicaid for all. He wants to defund and limit the powers of ICE. He's against funding Israel's military powers. He's advocating for a zero-down mortgage program for all homeowners. You know, but he's also a blue-collar working-class farmer and a combat veteran who did, I think, 4 tours in Iraq. So he appeals to a demographic that the left generally can't access.
I think you're right on both fronts, and this might be a good time to bring in some of the criticism that's been leveled against him by people here in Massachusetts. Jake Auchincloss, one of our Congress people, came out and condemned Platner for a couple things. He condemned him for, we should mention this, having a tattoo which bears a strong resemblance to the Nazi Totenkopf.
I mean, it is.
Tattoo. That's what it is. It's the SS, the SS death's head for people who might not be familiar. Platner has claimed that he got the tattoo basically while he was on a break from military service in Croatia, that he didn't know what it actually meant, that he covered it up as soon as he learned what it meant. That has been challenged in this most recent New York Times story that you mentioned that dropped last night. But Jake Auchincloss, who is also a combat veteran and is Jewish, has said that he thinks the tattoo itself is disqualifying, but also that Platner's brand of politics is not the right brand for Democrats to embrace. So let's take a listen.
I've been clear about Graham Platner. I find that tattoo and his commentary about it to be personally disqualifying. I hope Maine voters agree with me. I think there would be a mistake for the Democratic Party to think that Graham Platner's brand of the Democratic Party is what wins us durable majorities throughout this country.
And Auchincloss got a lot of flack for this because he is the chair of the Majority Democrats political organization that's promised to reshape the Democratic Party and challenge the status quo. And he also said that he wouldn't support Susan Collins. But these are the two candidates now. Janet Mills had dropped out. These are the options.
These are the two candidates, although just to make it messier, there are a couple other Democrats in the mix. Janet Mills reminded a Maine columnist over the weekend that she is still on the ballot. Mm-hmm. There's another candidate, a guy named David Costello, who's running. And then I think there's a fourth candidate, a woman who's running as a write-in candidate. But for all intents and purposes, it seems like it's going to be a Platner-Collins race unless there is so much scandal surrounding Platner that he drops out.
Right. And then I guess Janet Mills, I don't know.
We might want to mention, should we just hit a couple of the other things that he is accused of?
Yes. Oh my gosh, we got to get into the rest of the scandals.
Reddit posts that involve negative comments about women, incendiary comments about women and rape, also comments with a sort of a racial valence,
I think he blamed black people for it was
for
racist.
not tipping. Yeah, that was the claim.
He also
that black
said
people don't tip.
it's interesting because he said, when I joined the Marines, I was very patriotic, and he's since changed, and that was like
he was coming at there were both sort of problematic comments from the right and the left, if that makes sense, or maybe it doesn't break down along ideological lines. He was just all over the place making problematic comments on Reddit. There's the Totenkopf, and then there is the allegation in this Times story that ran yesterday. The Times interviewed a whole bunch of Graham Platner's ex-girlfriends. One of them in particular accused him of physical violence against her, of repeatedly grabbing her shoulders, and on one occasion of twisting her arm behind her back and forcing her into a room and telling her to stay there until she calmed down. He has denied that charge. Now, again, this parade of revelations has put people who want to see Democrats retake the Senate in a very awkward position. Maura Healey, the governor of Massachusetts, was asked on Boston Public Radio by Jim Braude about whether, if Platner makes it through the primary process, if he's the nominee, if she'll support him over Susan Collins. That was before the New York Times story that came out yesterday. Here's what Healey had to say.
I'm disgusted by what he posted, and I've been disgusted by some of his other, behaviors and antics. But here's the thing, come November, there's going to be a clear choice. Susan Collins needs to go. She needs to go for the people of Maine, but also for the people of this country.
And Ed Markey was asked on MS Now if he is going to support Platner. Again, this is before the New York Times story, but he said, yeah, Platner is right on policy.
So I think this is a challenge for Democrats because during previous races, we'd heard vote blue no matter who. And we'd heard when they go low, we go high. And now they're put in this position where they might support someone's policies, right? Even if Janet Mills could be elected, she doesn't have the same policies that people are excited about when it comes to Platner. What do you think people are thinking about in Maine? What are you hearing and reading about from Maine voters? Because none of us are Maine voters. I mean, we're all talking about this, but none of us vote in Maine.
I don't have my finger on the pulse of the ordinary Maine voter, but I think you're right. This is, to some extent, a question of how much people are going to be capable of holding their noses and voting for someone whose policies they might really like, even if there's clear evidence, even if some of the charges against him are not substantiated, may be, untrue. We'll see how it shakes out. Do you vote for the policy or do you vote for the person despite problematic personal behavior? It's a classic test case in that, and we will see what Maine voters decide in just a couple days.
GBH's Adam Reilly, thank you so much for joining us. This is Morning Edition.